I'm going to give you a little overview of today. So my vision is to go over the three main approaches to crop circles. One is the 3D, 2D, fascinating biophysical anomalies. Talk a little bit about the creation process, how they're made, who makes them, although that's quite a large subject. And we'll explore some of the empirical data that we love. Humans love evidence. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then I'm going to bridge into some of the more esoteric aspects of consciousness and incredible spontaneous healing aspects of the crop circles. They really are, they have what we would consider magic and can perform miracles when really those are just sophisticated technologies that are activating systems that we aren't aware of yet. Some of us are, and the more sensitive you are, the more subtle systems you can become aware of. Wherever you're at, the crop circles are going to amplify your reality. And because they are so neutral and so based in the universal language of math and geometry, they are open to interpretation. So there isn't one right or wrong way, and it will become evident that I am incredibly biased and full in the belief of the crop circles being made by advanced civilizations, and that the really sophisticated technologies are far beyond the capacity of what humans know right now. So we'll spend a little time in the middle with the sort of the next level of what the crop circles have to offer in terms of activation. And then we're going to go into the super esoteric levels of multidimensional activation and tapping into our DNA and really the extraordinary connection between consciousness and the collective of, the human experience, how they influence both individually and collectively. And we'll talk a little bit about the technologies of light and sound codes that are created and crafted specifically by members of the Galactic Federation, and how our different advanced civilizations and star family are involved in the process for humanity, for our collective awakening. I find it endlessly fascinating. I invite you to explore more on your own if you are inspired. This information can be incredibly activating, and typically it can create a bit of an obsession if you're hooked by them, if you have an activation. So just know that if you have a compulsion to continue learning about the crop circles, I highly recommend it, because it is an activation. You are tapping into the larger parts of yourself, your higher wisdom that we all long to connect with. So the overview is that I'm going to jump right into a rolling montage of crop circles. I'm going to be talking in the background. I have some fascinating information, but it's really fine if you tune me out entirely. You won't remember any of the information. It's really interesting. But where the real magic is just in looking at them. They are encoded with an incredibly multifaceted, multidimensional way of influencing our subtle systems, our psyche, and our complete energy body. So I'm going to put the circles on, and the invitation is really to breathe them in, almost as though you're going into a meditation, and see what arises when you're watching each crop circle. There can be lots of different experiences. You could have bliss states, you could fall asleep, you could have physical agitation, you could start yawning uncontrollably. So just know that whatever you're experiencing is perfect, and each circle will roll through after a minute. So whatever your experience is, it'll pass, and we'll go on to the next circle. So this is a powerful experience. I want everybody to put your psychic seatbelts on. It's very easy to underestimate the crop circles. And if you participate in the meditation of just looking at the crop circles, you will leave this workshop altered, and different aspects of yourself will have been activated. And you want to keep an eye out for vivid dreams, or feeling a little bit fuzzy just right after seeing the crop circles, or keeping an eye out for synchronicities. The crop circles are communicating in extraordinary ways. And so just opening your consciousness to that potential is innately, it's organically a shift, and connecting you with the wisdom of your knowing, and your higher intelligence, your wisdom. Lastly, I'm going to get right into the PowerPoint, but know that this is an energetic transmission. Attempt to leave the linear, leave the cognitive attempt to figure them out. We have that desire. We love the empirical data, and yet there are multiple levels that are happening. So the more we can breathe and just find your curious place, the deeper the experience can go. I had an activation about 10 years ago. I was exposed to crop circles, and they lay dormant in my psyche for about 7 years. I wasn't sort of connected to the process. And then in 2017, I saw one, and that was it. I became obsessed, and I wanted to draw them. I wanted them around me all the time. I plastered them all over the walls. And what I really wanted was the alignments that I wasn't quite connected to, but I just knew I felt on some level. I wouldn't articulate it as that. I just wanted to be around them and have that feeling. So if that happens to you, it's normal. And that experience led to my evolution. It led to my expansion, and my expansion forced my hand. I had to start talking about them. I had to go out in public and teach and share the information. So I know firsthand that the crop circles have led to my expansion, have led to my evolution, and have allowed me to align my system with my wisdom, with my intelligence. And that's where I share from. And that's why I am so passionate about this subject, is because I believe that our individual alignments really contributes to the collective alignment, harmonic cohesion, and that's the thing that can lead us to our collective liberation, our collective evolution, and the success of the human species, right? This is a big deal to look at crop circles. There's a lot on the line. I think that's it. I'm going to shift right over into the PowerPoint. So again, the invitation is to put me in the background. I encourage you to go full screen and really take in the crop circles. And again, notice whatever you're experiencing and just allow for it. Breathe through it. And I'm not going to be sharing with you which farm or which county in England or where in the world or what kind of crop it is or when it was made, because those are details that are too complex to track. And I really want to give the broader experience energetically of the circles. That's my bias. So to talk a little bit about the circles, just some basics about when they're made and how they're made is a huge conversation. So we'll put that one on the side. This is the one that I saw actually in 2017 that just sprung the door open. There was no going back. So they are made all over the world. They happen during the crop season while there's crops in summertime and growing, and they have this wonderful, they're like temporary temples. They appear and then they go when the crops are mowed down. And oftentimes the technology used in the making of the genuine circles, because there are man-made circles, there are government-made circles. In the genuine circles, where you feel the electrostatic charge, where you have a physical, energetic experience of the crop circles, whether you're there or not, those circles, the technology can alter the crystalline structure of the soil. They have the ability to increase the nutrition value, increase the propagation of the seeds, right? There's an influence in the crop that is extraordinary and measurable. There have been people, working with the crop circles for decades, who knew that evidence would be important. And so they've done really controlled studies of the crops out of the circles, the crops inside the circles. And I really encourage everybody to look into the research. It's very fun, very substantiating. When you see the empirical data, a great way to refer to that is biophysical anomalies. It's the changes in the environment that come from the technologies. And that's a really fun way when you're trying to talk to other people and explain the remarkable nature of them. You can call it biophysical anomalies. And those are the measurable aspects of the circles. Like, for example, if you go and dowse in the crop circles, you will find underlying geometries. They emerge to show us the patterns under the circles that are not necessarily visually evident to us. There are studies showing the electromagnetic shifts in the crop circles and the electrostatic charge that remains in the circles. We now have the ability to measure the fact that there are sonic frequencies in the crop circles. They are made, the genuine circles are made by technologies of light and sound. And it involves all sorts of cool science that we'll kind of barely touch on. But hopefully I'm going to give you enough that you really want to go learn more. That's my plan. So tons of phenomenon where in genuine crop circles, the technology used keeps the crop alive. It doesn't damage anything, and so the crops are harvestable. And you can imagine, as the formations happen in fields of farmers, there's all sorts of conversations about crop circle enthusiasts versus the farmers, and this relationship of the natural, the England culturally as well as geologically and spiritually. One of the things we want to try to do is go from this 2D image. A lot of times for people, they come out into a 3D phenomenon. You start to see the geometries from multiple directions, and then they go into multiple dimensions, right? Like, these are interfacing and blipping in and out of time. They are not bound by our time constructs, and they are interacting in relationship with the earth. The crop circles are here to activate not only us as humans, but the planet, and to help her shifting into, her multidimensionality and also her 5D, her fifth dimensional reality. So I actually learned this just the other day. This is such a great analogy that in acupuncture, you can access all the meridians through the ears, right? There's every single point, and you can do the entire healing work through the ears. England is like the ear of the planet. And you can imprint with the crop circles, and you can shoot direct energy lines to anywhere through, around, on the surface. So there's communication with the entire planet. There is assistance to the planet. That was a funny slip. The light codes that are in the crop circle are of service to the healing of our entire system, and that includes our planet. So all of that is to say, there's incredible evidence. What the invitation is to take the shift is from seeing them from this third dimensional reality, from interpreting them as linear, from interpreting them from limited constructs of our cultural and sociological interpretations, right? Again, it's that they are so neutral that they help us broaden out our consciousness. So I'm going to go back into screen share. So the issue of who makes them, there's the question of, are they man-made? Are they operatives from our military and governments? And are they made by, ET civilizations? And the answer is all three, and that they are all of service to consciousness. And that's really an interesting thing to consider. The technology is so sophisticated that it's working with the consciousness of everyone who makes them. That there is some sort of soul agreement to be making the patterns that are influencing our consciousness when we're simply visualizing and viewing them. And I really invite everyone to go beyond on some sense, the who makes them. And if you come to the conclusion that they are man-made, that's a little limiting. It's not going to be as expansive as considering our galactic community, right? They really invite you to broaden beyond this third dimensional reality, beyond our human ability to make these, and begin to open your consciousness to our cosmic family and the different civilizations that are here to assist us by imprinting this technology. But I don't want to deny it's not that there aren't man-made ones. A lot of times you can tell the difference. A lot of times you can't. And I really was curious about that because I would look at some of them, I would totally resonate with them and wonder, is this man-made? And the deal is that because these civilizations are involved, they have the ability to reprogram the frequencies of the crop circles. They have the ability to go in and shift the molecular makeup so that if there is any nefarious intention in the geometries or in the formation, they can shift up the frequencies. They can recode the geometries and the formations. So that is a significant issue, but it's not an either or. It's all of the above in terms of who makes them. But there are big differences that you can tell between all of the different authors. And when you think about the different civilizations that are involved, if we just say, oh, we have advanced civilizations, we have ETs. Well, is it just Arcturians? No. The blueprints for all of the crop circles and the whole project are kept on the Arcturian mothership, but the Galactic Federation and the representatives from all the different civilizations are who oversee the project, which is why you get so many different variations of formations. And I used to try to categorize them all. Some of them look similar. Some of them have different patterns. And I didn't really understand that. But then I got that piece that, I mean, the races involved are so much more varied than we can possibly understand. We tend to limit to Pleiadians, Andromedans, Sirians, Orions, right? But these are tapping into very, very ancient presence and intelligence that are here and assisting us. So back into the esoteric, part of what we're talking about, and this is also the advanced technology, the circles are encoded. I've mentioned that the frequencies of sound and light are used to create, the genuine quote-unquote crop circles. And the level of that technology is designed to connect with each human individually, uniquely interfacing with the biochemistry of our brains. Uniquely, one person walks in, the technology influences them in the perfect way with their system to what they can tolerate, integrate, and activate, right? It's not just tapping your 3D DNA. These are activating and working on levels of your soul DNA. These have the ability to get to your fundamental blueprint and purpose here on the planet, your soul agreements. These can really touch you in core places that are essential to our multidimensionality and our expansion. We're just not in touch with them. So a lot of times what's happening in the crop circles is completely invisible to us. We're not connected to our subtle systems. And so the crop circles are getting in there and they're connecting. They're connecting the dots. They're connecting the fascia of the spiritual fascia. Invite everyone to take a nice deep breath. Here's a really great example of, pentagonal geometry. Some of them are very obvious. Some of them are very subtle. And a lot of them, the images vary based on how the sunlight hits the crop circle, how new it is, what kind of crop it is, and is it early in the season? Is it, the sunset? Is it late in the season? You'll see all different examples. The golden ones are the ones late in the fields in the seasons. And there's fascinating aspects to what that means as well. This circle has, 79? It has 79 segments, both on all three rings. And that is just an incredible level of precision. I worked with that one for a while. A lot of times you can go through phases of working through different circles, or, some of these might really pop for you and some others just have no real resonance. And, there's a lot to that statement in terms of perhaps which civilizations you might be resonating with, right? There might be some crop circles that are directly related to the Pleiadians, and so what does that show you of your relationship to that consciousness? So with those sound frequencies, when we go into crop circles, when we're exploring the fact that they are made by sonic frequencies, what that does technologically is when we step into a crop circle, it aligns the hemispheres of our brain, like essentially like a binaural beat. Like you would go in and a theta rhythm would create that sort of harmony in a sort of altered state. That's part of the explanation for why people report such extraordinary experiences in the crop circles. There's tons of reasons why, but that's one of them. That's one that we can really anchor in. This circle, this formation, was part of a response in what was called the Arecibo experiment. That was 27 years ago. A message was sent out by SETI in the hopes of trying to connect with ETs, and it included information like our DNA, our humanoid form, our solar system, and I think it was I can't remember what year it was, but we received the response in the form of a crop circle, of a crop formation, and that's an amazing piece. This was part of it. They were indicating the technology that they use, which is satellite technology versus versus the radio waves that we use. In this crop circle, you've got the geometry in the center, but on the outside, you've got this extraordinary lay of the crop, which means, how the crop is laid on top of each other, and it sometimes is braided and has 3 different layers, sometimes even more. You'll see other crop circles with that example, and sometimes they're in these tufts, sometimes they're in rows of nests. It's extraordinary, and I believe that when the humans attempted to create the man-made circles and discredit the phenomenon, then the lay of the crop got extremely sophisticated. Here's another example of one where the lay actually creates the dimensionality. And the geometry in here is 7-fold. The numerology of these is fascinating when you start to break down the geometries. And I'm hoping you're starting to get a picture of how extraordinary these formations are. They're communicating on so many different levels. They are communicating with our geometry. We are in harmonic proportions. We are the phi ratio. And so when they're using the phi ratio in some of the math and some of the formations, we resonate with them so deeply, not only on a physiological level, but on this molecular, cellular level. This crop circle is perhaps the most powerful for me. I consider this my unique star glyph. This circle came to me in my explorations about my galactic origins. And I had all sorts of activations and, you could say, a remembering of who I am beyond this physical form, of who my previous lives were, of why I came here on the planet at this particular time. So these are some of the characteristics that the crop circles bring, is this remembering of parallel aspects of ourselves that exist in other realities right now. They really just break down the construct of time. And this one was so powerful for me, I had to draw it. I drew out the code. And when you get into drawing them, it's just another level of activation. It's another level of remembering. So all these different esoteric levels are happening when we are looking at the crop circles and just engaging with them. And then there's so many experiences. I mean, hundreds, if not thousands of experiences of spontaneous healing, spontaneous remission of chronic illness, subtle underlying mood imbalances, right? Where we've come onto this human experience, and we've got, these biochemical disharmonies that when you go into the crop circles, they can regulate these systems within ourselves. And when I'm talking about that, if we just pause, like, that's amazing technology. That's why we can say advanced technology, because they are working with each individual's system completely, specific and appropriate to where they are at that time in their consciousness and what they can absorb. And it really is the invitation for the next level. And if that involves physical healing, that's what happens. I've actually experienced that firsthand, seeing someone walk into a class in, 2 canes, barely able to make it up the stairs. She stayed in the class, left without the canes, and was just completely in good shape. So let's take a nice deep breath together as we segue into the next more esoteric realms. And although I've hinted at them, we'll cover a little bit about the technologies involved. So take a look at your environment, take a look around, remember that you're on the planet, remember that you're in your body. These can really take you out. So we'll just ground for a minute with some nice deep breaths. So a lot of the information about all of the crop circles comes from, like I said, researchers who have been doing the work in the field and gathered empirical data and give us those measurements, and that sort of, they substantiate the phenomenon, right? But a lot of the information comes from channelers, and one in particular whose name is Judith Moore, and she is extraordinary. She's been on the scene for, I don't know, 3 decades, since they started, and she's a channel for the Arcturians and many others. But essentially, she is the channel is Leolin, and she is from the Council of Abora and the Keepers of the Records of Ra. And so she has a specific frequency that she's tuning into. That consciousness is part of the team creating the crop circles. They are part of the Galactic Federation that are overseeing the project for humanity's evolution. This is one of the ways that we can activate our consciousness. In the more esoteric interpretations from the channel, crop circles are fractal formulas of light and sound frequencies that are encoded into the 3rd dimension as tools for ascension. And they are interacting with the collective mind. And there's this whole, not only the human collective mind, but our galactic community. And there's this incredible relationship about the origins of the formations, where they come from in the ships, how they're relayed down and step down the frequencies in order to enter the 3rd dimension, because these are extraordinary frequencies. And much like humans, they have to kind of jam themselves into the third dimension. One of the things that we know now that we didn't before is the technology that is used in the making of the circles actually interfaces with the crops, right? We're not just talking about laying down the crops. What it is it's an interaction with the hypergenetic consciousness of the plant. They are working with the earth, with the consciousness of the plant to offer these formations. And there is an agreement with the crop, but shifting into the idea of consciousness and that everything is connected. That's part of what they're asking us to shift into, is that relationship that we have with the natural world. One of the invisible aspects of the really multiple dimensional properties is that they are encoded with star glyphs, basically hieroglyphs, light language, if you're familiar with light language, and this intelligence that absolutely bypasses our linear rational ability to understand these. This is part of the soul DNA activation, is that we are drawn to certain formations. We are drawn to things that we intuitively know are activating us. Even if we wouldn't use that word, we intuitively resonate with a shape, and the suggestion is that there is a star glyph. There is an invisible imprint that is a match for some aspect of your soul DNA, of your physiological, psychospiritual needs for your evolution, and also collectively for the evolution. You know, the ability of these technologies to work on so many multiple layers, you know, work with plasma technology, go beyond the construct of time and space. I will leave you with the one frame that I've recently gotten behind. I was doing a session with someone. We were doing something very like this. We were just watching the crop circles and going into our experience of them. And what about this? What about the idea? You have to assume, you have to go with me for a second and assume, that one, it's a hyperbolic cube. Assume for a moment that there is another aspect of you that is on a mothership somewhere, that is on another station, that is part of that galactic federation that is overseeing the project, right? Just play with that idea that there's part of you that's on a ship. And what if, beyond the confines of this third dimension and of this limited construct of time, we know in our minds, it's hard to understand in an application process, we know that there is no such thing as time, that everything exists simultaneously. So what if part of you was on that ship and knew what your human aspect needed and was part of creating a certain circle that you would then respond to? Like, what if your psyche is giving you clues and all we have to do is sit and look with them, and that helps us connect to the intelligence that we are beyond this human experience? Just know there are thousands of these. They've been happening for decades, and so you can go in, I usually go into Pinterest, and you can just search for crop circles, or online anywhere, and just find them, just sit with them. If one particularly resonates with you, print it up, put it around you. There's also practices of printing one up, and then if you have some kind of physical ailments, actually working with the crop circle and energetically, and asking that form to assist you in your healing. I mean, you can go as far as you want to go with these. You could treat them as an entity, as a guide, as a guardian for you, and you can go into dialogue with it as it's a reflection of your higher self and your innate wisdom.